Welcome back to the FIM CEV Repsol live in 2017. It's round 5 here at the Circuito de Estoril. We're in Portugal, the second overseas trip of the season. And what a weekend it's been so far. If you just tuned into the European Talent Cup, then what a race you'll have witnessed. If you haven't, we won't spoil it for you, don't worry. 18 laps though for the European Moto2 Championship. 4.182 kilometers rather, 4 left-hand turns and 9 right, and a very demanding and exciting circuit. So Moto2, the second race of the day, is up. We've got 13 Moto2 bikes on the grid and 2 Superstock 600 machines also on the grid as well. And last time out, if you were tuning in to Valencia, you'll have seen Eric Granado taking his first ever double victory in Moto2 in the European Championship. So a great result there it was for Eric Granado. But also, as well, was interesting was Hector Garzo finished on the podium in the first race, crashed out in the second race, whilst Odendahl got his first ever podium in race 2 as well for the NTS machine. So some very exciting developments have taken place. And we're looking forward to getting this race underway. The fans are flocking in. We're ready up here in the commentary box as well. My name's Tom Brooks. Alongside me is Dakota Momola. We'll be bringing you coverage. As you can see, the pit lane is open. This man, the number 3, Lukas Tolovic, the German rider on the Forward Racing Team Kalex, run by Team Chiatti in association, of course, with the VR46 Riders Academy as well. Starting from pole position, his first ever pole in the European Moto2 Championship, and Team Chiatti's first pole for quite some time as well, as I understand it. So a brilliant bit of qualifying it was for these guys. And Dakota, earlier on, of course, we alluded to the wind at the circuit being quite difficult. It's not going to affect these riders, though, on the larger motorcycles so much, though, we imagine.
Not so much, no. If you compare it, with the European Talent Cup bikes, but it will affect them, though. And I think we've seen. I think there was a crash or so in Moto2 this weekend or something with the wind, and I've seen it also in the World Championship. The front wheel can pick up and you lose the front easily, depending where the wind direction is going. But I was speaking actually to Joe Roberts' dad, and I'm not sure if many people know Joe. He's really tall, and you can really Joe's dad goes out and watches him on track and kind of films him, and he was saying that in the afternoon, in the second qualifying yesterday in the afternoon, the wind got heavier, and Joe seemed to have gone slower compared to the rest of the field. And seems to be with the taller you are, the more affected you can get. I think it affects you on the front straight too a little bit when you go on the slipstream. But here's Lukas Tolovic, our pole man for today. He's been having a good season too.
He has, yeah. Consistent results.
Yeah, the start was a little rough, but now starting to seems to get more confident.
It's really good to see for Lukas Tolovic, and a great confidence boost as well for Team Chiatti, the Forward junior team here in the Moto2 European Championship. We've seen, of course, Federico Fellini, the other rider for Forward Racing, competing in the World Championship this year, substituting for Lorenzo Baldassari and making some wildcard appearances. And it's great to see Tolovic as well, that he's not a rider that should be forgotten about either.
No, 100%. A little bit a new rider too, which is important. That's what people, and teams in the World Championship are looking for, is young, new, talented riders, and German. That's another factor. There's not many Germans out there either. We need. I've said this many times, we need different nationalities in the World Championship, and Brazilian, another great nationality to have, and we need in the World Championship. He's had a great, at the moment he's the most consistent rider, I think, with the 5th place in Albacete, and then, 2nd in Catalonia and the 7th there. I think he was struggling with the heat there, but and then those double wins in Valencia, I mean,
incredible riding, wasn't it, from Eric Granado. He lines up in the middle of the second row, joint leader in the championship to Ricky Carduce. And Eric Granado looking in good shape, as Dakota alluded to just a moment ago. Very consistent indeed. But this man here missed the first round in Albacete, did Ricky Carduce. Missed the first round, as we said, in that first race, and then came to Catalonia, dominated the weekend, finishing in first, and then second in Valencia. And Ricky Carduce, riding for the Calais run team, lines up in 3rd position on the outside of the front row for this style of bike.
Look at the umbrella in Tulovic's.
Yeah, it's blowing away, isn't it?
It's turning upside down.
So it's going to be interesting to see. So the top two championship protagonists start in second and third place, respectively. The wind here is, though, picking up. This man, though, Stephen Odendaal, the number 44, took his first ever podium on the NTS machine last time. What on earth is that? He's got a donkey on his head, donkey puppet on his head.
I'm not sure why. Is it the donkey from Shrek?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not into whether he's referencing something he's done or whether... There you go. But nonetheless, Odendaal, one of the most relaxed...
focused
guys in the... And you can see he's got his headphones on. His girlfriend, Denisa, to his right-hand side. And I was...
She's got the tougher job right now.
Yeah, holding the umbrella at that stage of the weekend. But I was talking to Stephen Odendaal just a few moments before the warm-up got underway. And he was telling me that his bike is a bit different to his teammate Hiroki Ono's, which we'll talk more about, I'm sure, later on in the race. But Joe Roberts lines up alongside him on Odendaal's older machine. He's in fifth position, 20 years old, from America. And what a start to the season he's had. 8th, 6th, 2nd, a DNF in the first race in Valencia, and then 4th place. 5th position in the championship for his first ever year. Great result.
Yeah, and... this track, Estoril, you know, new for everybody. I think it's going to help him. It's more an advantage for Joe since he's having to learn all the tracks in Spain. But this one being a new track for everybody kind of gives it, you know, the same level. Everyone's in the same boat. Everybody doesn't know the track. They came here, everyone testing, so everyone has the same amount of time in this track. So if Joe, you know, wants to, you know, win a couple races, this is a great opportunity right here.
Exactly. Good weekend altogether for the Forward Racing team. Federico Fellini on the number 22. We can see there on the Calex. He lines up in 6th position on the grids. Their best qualifying of the season by a significant margin. Good season for Federico as well, as we can see. 7th in the championship, consistent inside the top 10, but he's going to be looking to try and break that duck to get himself inside the top 5 and hopefully try and fight for that podium as well. It would be good to see. So Federico Fellini, as we said, lines up in 6th position. The fans flocking into the circuit. We thank you so much for joining us here today, whether you're watching at home, whether you're watching somebody somewhere else, wherever you are watching in the world. It's great to have your company. Here's Hector Garzo, though, a man who's qualified consistently on the front row so far this season, and his first non-front row start of 2017, way back in 7th place.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what could have happened yesterday. New track for everybody. That's what's great about that is you can have the quickest guy that's been quick every single weekend start like 7th, like now with Garzo. And anyways, he's only 0.3. It's incredible. You know, the top 7 are 0.3 away, and the top 5, I think it is, or the top 4 are in under a 10th from each other. So
incredible closeness in qualifying is what we saw. We're all getting the slipstream on the start-finish straight, and it's going to be an interesting race, I'm sure. We just had the tyre allocation through Dakota. All riders on exactly the same tyre, all on the 2 compound front Dunlop, and then on the 1 compound rear Dunlop. Dimas Eki, 24 years of age. He is Indonesian rider. Good to see him. I know we have a lot of fans from the Asian region who watch the FIM CEV Repsol. They often keep an eye out for Dimas Eki, and he lines up in 8th position on the grid. He'll be looking to try and break into that top 5, I'm sure. If not, you never know, battle for a podium, because I saw a bit of an interesting development yesterday, because we were mentioning about Stephen Odendaal starting from the head of the 2nd row. He qualified in pole position in the first qualifying session. In case you don't know about the qualifying format in the CEV Repsol, there are 2 qualifying sessions. You have one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then they take your best time from either of the sessions. But he looked to try and improve his time in the 2nd session, which most people did, but he got stuffed up with a wrong tyre, a bad tyre, basically, and then ended up, unfortunately, not improving on his time. Here's, apologies for the pronunciation on this, Ivo Miguel Paixão, I want to say. Is that
Paixão, I think it is.
Paixão.
I used to race with him about 7-8 years ago when we were racing in the Metro Kits with Reins and everybody, and he's Portuguese, so he must be a wild card here.
He is. He's replacing David Sanchis, actually, on the Easy Race Moto2 Suitor. Not entirely sure where Sanchis has gone for this weekend. Couldn't find out any information.
He's taking the break. He saw a summer holiday. He's like
wants to enjoy himself, you know, and chill out. And we'll get Ivo on the bike. Why not? But Ivo doing a good job there as well. Actually, he lines up in 9th place for his first ever qualifying in the Moto2 Championship this year. Here's Xavier Cardelus, the Andorran rider, 19 years of age, as you can see there. A good run so far in the season in terms of the latter results, aside from that DNF he had in Valencia, but a bit inconsistent in some areas as well. It's not looking too bad for him, but I think he just needs to work on the consistency really more than anything, and just, you know, keep himself on the bike and keep himself in those good positions.
Yeah, he's improving, and that's what everyone needs to do. You know, improve from the start of the season to the end.
Here is Jason Uribe. He lines up in 11th place, 18 years of age. Rides with the number 36, and again, he's been in the championship for a couple of years now, has Jason, and I have to say a big thank you to him, by the way, because I was chatting to him, to a couple of team members in Moto2 earlier on, and I was just walking away up to the commentary box before we started the broadcast, and he ran over to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and gave me a bottle of water, which was very nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, nice guy, Jason. I like him a lot. He's lines up in 11th place on the grid. And alongside him will be the other MTS machine of Hiroki Ono, who undoubtedly we'll see in just a couple of moments' time. So the race getting underway in about 4 minutes or so. Of course, the riders will head off on their warm-up lap. They'll get the heat into the tyres and the brakes. Here is Hiroki Ono. Had a brilliant run last time out in the second race in Valencia. 25 years of age he is. He's been around the block a few times. He's been in Moto3. He's been in Moto2 in the World Championship, but took his best ever results. He's looking to get that confidence back, and he will line up on the grid in in 12th position, but took his best results ever in 5th place. But here is the full grid then for you. Let's run you through it. Lucas Tolovic, Eric Granado, and Ricky Cardo separated by just a few hundredths of a second on the front row. Odendaal, Joe Roberts, and then Federico Fellini on row 2. Hector Garzo, Dina Secchi, and Ivel Miguel Paixão on row number 3 in 9th position. All riders separated not by a lot at all. Row 4, Xavier Cardeluz, Jason Uribe, then Hiroki Ono. Row 5, Mark Luna, Carlos Fidalgo, and then Felipe Legallo. So the final 2 riders on the grid are the wildcards, the Superstock 600 riders. So 13 full-spec Moto2 bikes on the grid and heading off on their formation lap, and 2 Superstock 600 machines. And as we saw Dakota so close in qualifying as well, it looks like it's going to be very close in the race as well. Yeah,
it seems like it's going to, you know, the top 7, like I was saying earlier, were all in, 0.3 of each other, which is incredible. And it's especially incredible in such a long lap. It's a minute 42 for these boys, so it's not a short racetrack. And yeah, I mean, and it's going to be interesting to see how many of them can stay together. If Ricky or Tolovic can pull away, you never know with this. But we'll see in the next few laps right now.
Well, there we can see just a couple of riders getting themselves warmed up on the formation lap. There is Carlos Mercier on the number 2 machine. Philippe Legallo, 59 years of age he is, the oldest rider there on the number 60, the JHK Leglise Yamaha R6, the brand new Yamaha R6 for 2017. So all the riders now on their formation lap, just warming up their tyres, warming up their brakes, getting themselves focused and ready for the race start here in the European Moto2 Championship. The championship lead separated by nil points because Ricky Cardouz and Eric Granado on equal points on 90 apiece.
French there, Matt.
Yeah, I'm learning French more than I'm learning Spanish, which is ironic considering I live in Barcelona. But,
it's not bad. I'm impressed.
What, nil points? It's not that difficult. Something you hear in football and stuff like that, isn't it? You pick it up pretty quickly. But the warm-up lap for Moto2 just about to be completed as riders come around the final corner. But as we said, no gap between the top 2 in the Moto2 Championship. And then there's quite a significant margin to Stephen Odendaal, who's 3rd on 65 points. So Odendaal's got it all to do here today if he wants to get himself in contention for this championship in 2017. But I was talking to him and he said that it's likely they'll be ending up in the World Championship on the NTS bike for next year, which is really good to see for him because, of course, he is the reigning champion, was hoping to go up to the World Championship last year, but didn't quite pay off for him due to a variety of different reasons. But anyway, back on focus. Here is Lucas Tolovic, the poleman, the German rider, 17 years of age for the Forward Racing Junior team. He will line up at the head of the grid. The clearest view down to the first corner, Eric Granado and Ricky Cardouz alongside him. So the riders just getting themselves ready. There's the poleman. The fluorescent yellow helmet and boots make him easy to distinguish. Look to the left-hand corner of your screen. Wait for the 5 red lights to come on here. European Moto2 is underway. Very short hold as they get going, and Lucas Tolovic gets an equally brilliant start from the front row of the grid. But who's going to lead the way down into the first corner as they all get bumping and going into the first turn we go. Cardu's up the inside of Eric Granado. Granado gets shuffled out to dry. A bit of a poor start once again for the Brazilian. He's down in about 5th position as Odendaal gets himself up into P3. So the top running order is Tolovic. Then it is the number 88 of Cardu's, but Cardu's up the inside into turn number 2. He moves ahead of Tolovic into the lead of the race, but the German isn't going to be having any of that. Will he be able to fight his way back? Very close indeed, as we got a yellow flag in the background. Somebody's gone down the road. We didn't quite see who it was, but nonetheless, hopefully they're all up and okay. But Cardu's now leads the way ahead of Tolovic, ahead of Odendaal. So a brilliant opening few corners there, and already Cardu's is looking to try and put himself a bit of daylight between him and between him and Tolovic. Now it's going to be Odendaal, because Odendaal at the interior, Parabolica, goes up the inside, finds his way through, but Tolovic gets it back on exit. So brilliant bit of overtaking and opportunist riding from the Calex forward racing rider. Now into 2nd place, and Cardu's is really trying to put the hammer down. And we've had a rider that's gone down. That's number 36. So that is
Uribe.
Yeah, Uribe's gone down the road. Unfortunately, there he is. So he crashed at what looked to be turn 3 or 4. He's back on the bike, but hopefully he can stay out and continue onwards. He's had a difficult weekend so far, down in 11th place in qualifying. He'll be looking to try and improve on that. Of course, they've got a second race here this afternoon in Moto2. It will be the last race of the day. But coming around the final corner to complete the last lap, it is Ricky Cardu's who leads the way on that Team Styler bike Calex, ahead of Lucas Tolovic, ahead of Stephen Odendaal, and Odendaal already ducking out of the slipstream. If you tuned into Valencia, you'll have seen him running the black fairings on his machine, which was a bit of a strange look on his bike, because we're used to it being red and white, as he goes up the inside of Tolovic on the exit of the first corner. Beautiful bit of riding from the reigning European champion. And he's got the full fairings, the full livery on his bike this weekend. The reason for last time having the black fairings on his machine was because they bolted the other ones on, and apparently they were catching the wind a bit too much at Valencia and just not fitting right at all. So they put the spare fairings they had on the bike, and that was what they did.
It's good to see Odendaal back in the front. You know, we always saw him at the start of the season struggling a bit, you know, always around 5th. Well, not struggling, but, you know, he knows where he could be. We all know where he belongs. He belongs at the front. And I think it was just a mix of things of getting used to the bike at the beginning of the season. And look at him now, you know, running in 2nd and every weekend doing better and better. And it's what we like to see.
Well, as I said earlier on, I was talking to him earlier on this morning, and I said to him, we were having a chat about the bike, and his and Hiroki Ono's bike, his teammate, are actually quite different in terms of what they run. They run different suspension, as Odendaal has WP suspension, Ono has Öhlins front forks, whereas in terms of the swing arm as well, they've got a different swing arm on the rear end of the bike. So Odendaal preferring something that just digs in a bit harder and just gives him a bit more grip in the early stages of the race. So it looks like it's suiting his riding style a little bit better, and he is looking like he's got the bit between his teeth, and hopefully he can hold on to the end of the race and really put up a good fight with Cardu's, because that's what we've not seen with Odendaal as well. He started really strongly, but then towards the latter half of the race, whether it's tyres or setup or something, it's just not worked out for him at all, and he's faded towards the end.
Yeah, and like you were saying, also his riding style is so different to Ono, you know. So maybe that could be another factor why he's using different parts of the bike and different settings and different suspension, and because riding style can make a big difference with that. So especially with tire wear, like you were saying, you know, halfway through the race he seems to, you know, struggle a little bit more than the rest, but. Like I said, he's been improving every race weekend we've been going to, and I don't think I think it's going to be different here. Even though Cardu's looks like he's kind of put the hammer down a bit now and pulled a little small gap or to Odendaal, but
a little bit of daylight between himself. Meanwhile, here comes Joe Roberts up the inside of Hector Garzo. That's into the interior Parabolica, gets the move done and dusted, does the AGR rider. So now he is in to 5th position. So good top 5 there for the American. Meanwhile, as you just saw beforehand, the graphic on your screen showed that the man in 4th place, Eric Granado, was fastest last time around. The double victor in Valencia, the Brazilian rider in 4th position with the fastest lap by some way as well. He's looking very good out there on track. So
And that lap time would have put him in pole position.
So keep an eye out for here in the latter half of this race. If he can hold on to the longevity, get the longevity of the tyres, which shouldn't be too difficult because it's not as hot here this weekend. It's been very hot at the rounds we've had so far, and especially in Catalonia, we've seen riders ripping up those tyres, haven't we? And really, really putting a lot of pressure on it. And it's all been about conserving the tyre life and making sure that you've got some grip towards the end of the race. But doesn't look like that will be too much of a problem here this weekend as Odendaal ducks out of the slipstream of Cardoos. Cardoos still leading the way. The 29-year-old KTM test rider runs it a bit wide, though, does the South African into the first corner. That allows Tolovic just to close up ever so slightly in the middle parts of turn number 1. As they go through, though, into turn number 2, he's already pulling out that gap once again. And this is the thing with Odendaal. If you look at other riders, he loves that bike bucking and weaving all over the place. He slides it left, right and centre. Oh, and no. That's Roberts that's gone down from 5th place in the background of his shot. So Joe Roberts on the AGR bike loses the front end at what looked to be turn number 3. That's a big shame there.
Same corner as his teammate Jason.
Exactly. So it must be something to do with, I would say cold tyres, but it's surely too late for cold tyres on lap 4 out of that. So it must have just been pushing a bit too hard. Yeah, he's up the inside of Tolovic into turn number 6, move is done and dusted, and now Granado is into 4th position. So good bit of riding there from Eric Granado. He's now onto the podium, I apologise, into 3rd place ahead of Tolovic. Tolovic now down into P4. And already the top 2 looking to try and break away ever so slightly, aren't they, from 3rd position? And it's going to be hard to hold on because these two squabble amongst each other.
Oh, there's
Joe Roberts.
There's Joe again.
Yeah, Jason Uribe, by the way, we should mention, he ended up going back into pit lane. And he is now out of this race, unfortunately. Here is the incident. Here we can see the bike being pushed back onto the track. So it just looks like he lost the front end. So a difficult day in the office for the opening Moto2 team in the AGR outfit. Meanwhile, back out in front, lap 4 out of 18 to become 5. The top 3 now lining astern because it's Cardoos, then it's Odendaal, then it is Granado. So who is going to get the drag into the first corner? Very close indeed, but Dakota, what have we got in the timing?
Fastest lap of the race again by Granado, and 0.3 quicker than pole position qualifying yesterday.
Unbelievable stuff from Eric Granado. Really has got the bit between his teeth. That slipstream undoubtedly helping him along that start-finish straight as well. And he is really closing up onto the back of Stephen Odendaal. He's really looking very, very menacing at this stage in the race.
Yeah, and the thing is, his main competitor, Cardoos, in this, is leading the points with him. He doesn't want him pulling away, and if it's if there's anybody else that can win this, it's also Eric. He's won both races last weekend and 2 weekends ago in Valencia. He's got that confidence to win, and he seemed to be have a bad start of the race, but now he seems to be back in the comfort zone and already at the back of Odendaal.
Well, the fluorescent yellow helmets of Eric Granado, joint leader in the championship with the man who is leading the way in this race, Ricky Cardoos. And Cardoos, here we go with Granado up the inside into turn 9 and 10. That was a bit of a cheeky move. They've got some good history, these two. Granado and Odendaal. Odendaal still manages to retain the advantage, and Tolovic closes up ever so slightly. And they're going to have to work together, these guys, because if they don't work together, then Cardoos is just going to romp away.
And then it's going to be tough to, gain that time back to Cardoos because he's been quick since lap 1. So
exactly, he's been lapping a little bit slower though than the likes of Odendaal and Tolovic behind him, and Granado as well, as we mentioned, with that fastest lap. But nonetheless, be interesting to see what happens. Here though comes Tolovic looking up the inside of Granado, hard on the brakes, the legs dangling, but can't make the move stick. So lap 6 out of 18 we are on now. Cardoos with the daylight, with the track in front of him, leading the way. Unbelievable stuff here in Portugal.
Eric seems to be a little bit slower in sectors 1 and 2 compared to Ricky, but sector 2 and 3 seems to be really strong. So he needs to get by Odendaal, who's kind of holding him up a bit right now. And Odendaal, what he needs to do is just follow him, because I think Eric's the only one that can really gain that space back to Ricky and be a top competitor.
He's really going to have to try hard. So there is Stephen Odendaal, the reigning champion. going to make the move, hopefully, up to the World Championship in Moto2 next year with that NTS machine. It really would be good to see a brand new manufacturer up, and whispers about him doing some work with Triumph as well and some other bits, and it's going to be interesting. Somebody asked me the other day, of course, with Moto2 in 2019 in the World Championship going to Triumph, are we going to see perhaps a Triumph engine in the CEV next year? Well, it's a possibility. We don't know yet. We haven't had any confirmation or any
we hope so.
Anything other than a whisper, really, but it would be good to see.
100%. I mean, it's what the sports needs. It needs different types of manufacturers back in the sport, and it'll create, more riders to be able to come and race, and more spots to be filled in.
Exactly. So over the timing line we go with the trio leading the way. I say trio, it's pretty much a quartet because Talovic is hanging on in there very nicely. Here comes Odendaal ducking out of the bubble once again, but no way through into that first corner. They're going hard on the brakes, and that first corner goes downhill a bit. It drops away ever so slightly, doesn't it? And it's such an acute corner as well. We've seen riders running on and being able to just not stop it. I saw it in warm-up this morning. Talovic got hung out to dry as he just ran it too fast into the corner. Yeah,
I mean, I think the wind's kind of, stayed the same. So, and the wind, with the tailwind kind of pushes you. It could give you another 10, like I said earlier, 10K an hour quicker, and you could be braking one area, and if you want to brake it slightly a little bit deeper, and it's going to be way too deep, and you run it wide, like we just saw there with Ricky. So it's really difficult to judge the brake markers, but. He's been struggling, Garza this weekend, and
he's not
I'm not quite sure why.
Not been on the form that we've used to been seeing of him.
No.
Doesn't mean by any means he's having a bad weekend. He's sitting inside the top 5, but he's not been on the form that we've used to been seeing of the Spaniard. Of course, he competed in the World Championship at the Saxon Ring, putting a blinding performance to qualify 5th on the grid. Unfortunately, he ended up crashing out in the race, but nonetheless, he has been almighty so far this season, a top qualifier, but qualified a bit further down than we were expecting. Perhaps he's just struggling with the track or with setup on the bike. Bear in mind that the Team Wimu CMS outfit are the only team here this weekend running a Tech 3 bike, so it could be perhaps something to do with setup, or maybe they're just not finding the balance right, or but maybe just the riders are struggling. But if you look at his teammate Mark Luna's down, he was the last of the qualifying Moto2 bikes in 13th place. He's made a bit of progress in the race at the expense of others, but nonetheless he's just not having such a good weekend. Meanwhile, the leader's like about to change as Cardouz looks to come under pressure as Talovic gets himself up into 3rd place. Talovic now ahead of Granado, and Odendaal looking very threatening indeed on lap 8 out of 18 that we're on now. So into turn number 2 we go. And then into the right-hander of turn 3 as we climb up the hill. Granado has a bit of a sneaky look against Talovic in 3rd place, but no way through for him there. Shuts the door very firmly, does Lucas Talovic into the right-hander. Turn at number 4 on this circuit. Then we go into that right-handed kink, and then it's the interior parabolica. It's a good overtaking opportunity, but it's a very fast part of the lap. The circuit is incredibly quick here. That right-handed kink doesn't look like much of a corner on the TV screens, but I can assure you that it really, really is, as Cardouz gets the back end all out of shape into the interior parabolica. There is Philippe Gallo, the lapped, or soon to be lapped, Superstock 600 rider. He's running last of the classified runners in 14th place, and something that's good for these riders as well is if they all finish, of course, they'll end up scoring points, which is always nice and good for some championship battles in one way or another.
Yeah, because we're only 15 riders here this weekend, and
I was going to send you out on the scooter just to make it a bit more interesting to see if you fancied it.
I'd love to. I'd get a point, that's for sure.
See if you can complete 2/3 race distance by the time these guys have completed their 18 laps.
I think my goal would be how many times he cannot lap me. You know what I mean?
Exactly, they'll find some shortcuts somewhere, I'm sure. So Cardouz really coming under pressure from Odendaal now as well as we come over the timing line. But Odendaal just doesn't look to have the straight line speed. They've been in the wind tunnel a lot with that NTS bike. But here comes Talovic. He's hard on the brakes. He's going to do 2 in 1 nearly into the first corner. Deep on the brakes into turn 1. Manages to get ahead of Odendaal. Can't quite get the better of Ricky Cardouz. And he has to wait to fight another day. So into the right-hander of turn number 2 we go. And the running order now is Cardouz, Talovic, then comes Odendaal, then it is Eric Granado. And Granado looks like he's just dropping off the back ever so slightly. Just a bit of a gap created between that trio and him.
Yeah, he seems to be making a couple mistakes, and that's why he keeps shuffling back. So, I mean, he's got the pace to stay there, but he just has to stop making those you know, small mistakes.
Should mention that Ivo Lopez, in his first ever race on the Suter machine in place of David Sanchis, has now got himself up into 8th place, so that'll be a good top 10 finish for the Portuguese, the local rider. Meanwhile, here comes Salovic. He's really battling now with Odendaal, the Spanish, I say, South African rider, really trying to get himself ahead as we go into turns number 7, then into turn number 8 before the chicane in turns 9 and 10. Here we go then into this corner. We saw a few overtakes taking place, but still Cardouse that leads the way at the moment, and Talovic is really coming strong in the mid stages of this race. So just over 9 laps to go, halfway through the race now we are, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens between these guys.
Saying that, I think Ricky's actually the only rider here that's raced here before. Now that I think about it, in the World Championship.
In 2012, they came here for the last time, and he was in Moto2 then, for AGR, funnily enough, in their first year.
So, I mean, he has the most experience here out of all these boys. So, I mean, it's normal that he's running in the front. He's been quick in every race weekend, but here comes Talovic again. Yeah,
Talovic up the inside into the lead of the race. So the German rider gets it inside, but Cardouse gets it back on the exit. Says, thank you very much. I'll have a better exit than you, Sunshine. And through there he goes, and in back to the lead of the race. I do wonder, though, when Cardouse is going to get some leathers that match his motorcycle, because he's been running...
You say that every weekend.
Been running white and orange ones for the last... few weekends, but nonetheless it makes him distinguishable, if anything else, here in the commentary box, which is good because I often trip over myself as to who the riders are. Meanwhile, now Odendaal is coming under a bit of pressure from Eric Granado. Granato's coming back into play over the last couple of laps, a couple of corners rather, I should say. He's really looking very menacing on lap 10 out of 18. Will he be able to pose a serious threat towards the end of this race, or will we see the likes of Talovic and perhaps Cardouse fighting amongst each other? Here comes Odendaal, thinks about a move into the right-hand, and downhill we go. And that corner looks absolutely brilliant on TV. I can't imagine what it's like to ride in real life.
I've never raced here, so I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you it looks fun. And wish I was out there riding with these boys. But the top 4 guys are all running in, you know, low 43s, 43 zeros, and Garzo too. You know, he's running in the 43 zero, but I think him being shuffled back the first 5-6 laps, you know, that's what makes the difference. You need to be on top of the thing from lap 1.
Exactly. Some problems here for Xavier Cardouse as well. The number 18 on the Team Styler bike outfit, the teammate to Ricky Cardouse, has unfortunately pulled into pit lane. Some problems with his motorcycle by the looks of things of a technical nature. Meanwhile, here we go then into the first corner. Who's going to brake latest? Here we go with Odendaal. Is he going to do 2 in 1? Is he going to run it too hot? Surely. Yes, he is. He's gone off out to the car park and manages to get it call back up to the exit, but Dow drops down into 3rd place, so very hard on the brakes. That was always going to be a bit tricky to stop it from there, and Cardouse, Talovic and Odendaal take the positions as they were, and that's going to allow Granado to get very close indeed on the exit of the corner. So into the right-hander of turn number 4 we go. Incredibly close indeed. And Granado's in the pound seats here. He can watch these riders. He can see what they're doing. This was something I was talking about with Ricky Cardouse when he won in Catalonia, is that he was watching the riders, seeing what they were doing, seeing how they were putting the throttle on, and he was just holding back ever so slightly, holding his tyres to the end of the race as Odendaal gets the better of Talovic into turn number 6, into the interior parabolica. But he was just holding back and keeping his rhythm consistent and clear, and then pouncing at the end of the race. Here we go with Granado. He's up the inside of Talovic as well into turn number 7. Done and dusted for the Brazilian on the German rider. And then into the right-hander we go. But this battle for the lead is going to intensify. It's going to be an almighty final lap in the European Moto2 Championship if this is how it stays. 4 riders dueling for the lead. They were all separated by just a few hundredths of a second in qualifying, and now they're separated by just a few tenths of a second on track. Such close racing, it's really good to see. And who do you think is looking like he's going to be in the best position to pounce at the end of this race, Dakota?
Ricky seems to always have this small little break or little window in between him and Odendaal, and seems to be fast, and you know, even though he gets passed, he seems to find another area to pass him back. So right now my money's on Ricky. You never know with Eric. He always seems to come strong towards the end of the race. We've seen him, you know, pass really good aggressively in Valencia. He's a great you know, a great rider to pass.
Oh dear, somebody's pointing. Is somebody pointing at Tolovic? Oh, it's the lap rider. I apologise. So I'm getting excited over something that isn't really an instant. Yeah, it's just Mercier getting himself out of the way on the stock 600 bike. There he is, just running himself a little bit slower than the other riders, of course, due to the performance deficit. But
I think Tolovic made a small mistake, so he's kind of.
Yeah, he's dropped back a bit, hasn't he?
With a 43.9, you know, and everyone else running a 43.2. So yeah, it's actually giving Garza a small little hope of, you know, being 3 seconds behind him. You never know. Maybe Garza can catch the group.
Well, they say anything can happen in motor racing, and it usually does as well. So we'll have to wait and see. Lap 12 of 18 we're on, so 6 laps left to run here at the Circuito de Estoril. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget, of course, you can keep up to date with everything CEV Repsol related on social media. We'll give you that information in a few moments' time. Here comes Granado up the inside of Odendaal. Gets it done and dusted, but on the exit, is Odendaal going to get it back? Yes, indeed he is, but into the right-hander. They're going corner to corner, wheel to wheel, and side by side, and Granado pounces and moves himself up into second place. Nicely done there from the double race victor at Valencia.
Some great racing, and now Eric's got to put his head down and try to catch Ricky, who's now, I think, gaining about 0.4. Yeah, he's gaining 0.4 in front of Eric. So,
yeah, Cardouse has really sort of pulled the pin, as it were, as well. He had 0.4 of a second, as you say, over the timing line. So it's going to be interesting to see how we get on. But as we said, you can follow the FIM CEV Repsol on social media. On Twitter, it's at CEV Motorcycle, or if you're on Facebook as well, facebook.com/CEV Motorcycle as well. You can follow it on there and keep up to date with all the latest things that are happening with the FIM CEV Repsol. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Moto2 next year, whether we'll end up with some Triumph engines and the like, or whether we will end up running the Honda engines for another year, perhaps into 2020 in this championship. You never know what might happen. So keep up to date with everything on the website and on social media to keep abreast of all of the action that is taking place in the series. Here's Hector Garza, though, on the Tech 3 machine. He's been lapping consistently, hasn't he? Personal best lap last time, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's, at the moment, he's the quickest rider out there. It's not by much, I mean, by 0.1 or 0.2, but he's been, running quick, and it seems like more laps go by, the quicker you get. So be interesting to see. I'm not sure if he'll catch the front group with Ricky, Eric, and Odendaal, but he might catch Tolovic. You never know.
Exactly. The first of the classified runners in the Stock 600 class is still Mercier at the moment. We saw, of course, getting out of the way of the leading trio at the moment. But here comes Granado, though. He is really piling the pressure on to Ricky Cardouse now. He's going to try and find his way through, I'm sure, after this straight. He's in the slipstream now, but it's not that effective on these Moto2 machines. But will he be able to find a way through? It's a very long straight indeed. Into the first corner we go, hard on the brakes, but still Cardouse manages to brake later. And now Odendaal is going to really be under pressure to try and stick with this trio, as Tolovic has really dropped off the back of this leading group at the moment. So a 4-way scrap becomes a 3-way scrap with just under 4 laps now remaining. But Granado making all sorts of shapes with his bike, trying to find that opportunity.
Yeah, it seems to be, always the same, where towards the end of the race, these two boys at the front are always battling against each other, and they're by far, the strongest two riders at the moment in this championship, and they're both tied in the points. So, but Odendaal's there, and it'd be good to see if Odendaal can actually challenge to win this race.
It really, really would be. It'll be interesting to find out. Don't forget, of course, it's 25 points for the win and 20 points for second position. So 5 points could be the difference in the championship after this race if it finishes with either Granado or Cardouse on the top of the spot. Here we go then. Here, look at that from Ricky Cardouse. He was getting himself all out of shape there. Really pushing very hard indeed.
It's a very strong and very fast change of direction, and seems like he had a small slide in the rear, which made the bike unsettle itself.
Big warning sign as well for him as well. You want to be careful after you've got something like that.
Yeah, and Eric, who's sitting right behind him, sees that, and sees if he's struggling in areas, and that's what Eric needs to see is. This is he's in a great position right now.
So over the timing line we go. 3 laps now to the checkered flag. Odendaal pops out from under the bubble. He tries to get himself ahead on the brakes of Eric Granado. He does indeed manage to do it. He's hard on the brakes and he's into second position. So Stephen Odendaal, just a few races ago, he was battling inside the top 5. Now he's battling for his first ever win and the team's first ever win on the NTS machine in 2017. Will it be the first race here at Estoril? Will it be the second race, or will we have to wait towards the end of the season? It's surely only going to be a matter of time as Philippe Legallo, the stock 600 rider, just pulls off the racing line, doing a good job to get himself out of the way of those riders and not disrupt the flow as to what's going on. It's going to be very exciting indeed. Still Cardo's with the advantage. Cardo's looks strong in this second sector. It looks like he's really got it hooked up.
Yeah, and if these boys have to stop passing each other, because Cardo's just keeps, you know, creeping forward and more, and then coming back and then forward and back. So they need to try to, you know, make a move on Ricky soon, because and I think Odendaal has the chance. You know, Odendaal looks like he's a late breaker. He's really strong on the brakes, and I don't see why not.
Well, he asked me who was doing the post-race interview as well. I said it was you. He's looking forward to it.
Oh, so, I hope so.
If that turns out to be the case,
I get to interview him, because it's been since last year. So last year Valencia.
I see. There we go. It could be Odendaal. It could end up being Cardo's. It could be Granado. It could be either of these three. You never know. If anything happens, it could end up being Talovic at this race. Anything can happen in motorcycle racing. Into the final corner we go, out of the Parabolica Ayrton Senna, ready to come over the timing line. 3 laps before the finish it will be as we cross the timing line here in Estoril. And who's going to have the fastest lap out of these riders? It looks like it is Odendaal, just by a whisker, with a 42.977. He's just a couple of hundredths quicker than the man in front of him, Ricky Cardo's, who's really wobbling and weaving and bucking all over the place on that styler bike Kalex. Looking like he's really struggling with tyre wear towards the latter stages. But of course these guys are all going to be in the same boat at this point as well.
Yeah, and you know, Garza's now 1.3 behind Tulovic, so he's catch some ground on him, and it'll be interesting to see if he can, you know, get in that top 4 position. But these boys are now going to be going at it with 3 laps to go, and some great passes going to be coming up soon.
It's going to be very exciting indeed. Should mention that Federico Fellini having his best race of the season so far in 6th position. Dimas Eki in a well-deserved 7th place as well. Ono's 8th. Lopez in 9th as well. The wildcard Portuguese man is 9th. And Mark Luna inside the top 10. Good to see, by the way, that Joe Roberts managed to get himself back out on track. And he is in 11th position. So not doing too badly at all there is Joe Roberts. So here we go then with Cardo's. Here comes Granado though, up the inside into turns 9 and 10.
Eric's done that 3 times already.
The Eric, but we'll have to call that move the Eric now, won't we?
Start calling that corner Eric now, because he's done that 3 times, and it'll be interesting to see now. I mean, Eric, I know Eric's strong here in this last section, so it'll be interesting to see if he can actually pull a move on Ricky, who hasn't been passed for a few laps now.
So 2 laps before the finish we go with Cardo's, Granado and Odendaal ready to battle it out until the checkered flag. Now Odendaal really needs to duck himself into the slipstream. He needs to get himself ahead of Granado at this stage in the race. This is where it's going to count, because if he doesn't get himself ahead of Granado, then he's going to really be piling on the pressure. Meanwhile, Garzo, speaking of piling on the pressure, is now really very close to Talovic. You mentioned it.
Half a second.
You mentioned it, of course, just a couple of moments ago, and now that surely is going to change hands. 4th position before the end of this race. Here we go. Here is Talovic. Looks like he's just struggling with something. Struggling with setup or tyre wear, or...
Could be tyre wear, yeah, because every lap he's been going slower and slower, and now he's the only one really running on high 43s, when the rest of them are running mid or low 43s.
Well, it was a really good pole position from him nonetheless, and it would be a great feat for him to finish ahead of his teammate inside the top 5. There is, though, Hector Garzo. A good top 5 for him, top 4 even, would be fantastic. He would be very, very happy with that. Hard on the brakes we go. Look at the elbow out style of Hector Garzo. You compare that to the likes of Odendaal, who's very much shoulder out. Here we go though on the brakes into turn number 7, up the inside for Eric Granado, ahead of Ricky Cardo's. He gets the move done and dusted, but Cardo's tries to fight it back on the exit by taking a tighter line, but no way through there for the Spanish rider. 3 nationalities, 3 motorcycles, 3 different riders, all battling for position. Into the final sector of the lap we go. Who is going to take the race victory? At the moment, it's Granado, who's pounced right before the very end of the race. Odendaal looks like he's just a little bit too far away at this stage. but there's still one more lap to go. Anything could happen. We could see a very exciting climax to the European Moto2 Championship race number 1 here in Estoril. So final lap time we are over the timing line now with Eric Granado ahead of Ricky Cardouz, ahead of Odendaal. No slipstreams on the straight, but here comes Odendaal, looks to try and go a bit deeper on the brakes ahead of Cardouz, but can't make it through. There's so many riders, I can't keep track of who's doing what, but still, they're all battling very closely indeed. Who is going to take the victory in this race? Looks like it's still Granado at the moment with the upper hand as we come into turn number 4.
And Garza's right behind Tulovic, I was seeing in the back of the TV screen, so that's going to be another good battle happening.
Yes, surely that position, as we said, is going to change hands before the end of this race. But now Granado, he's just got half a lap from home before taking his 3rd consecutive victory. It'll be a feat that we haven't seen so far in the 2017 European Moto2 Championship. A feat we haven't seen for a very, very long time indeed. But here comes Odendaal. He's going to try and spoil the party, but he's in 2nd place, and he just looks like he's a little bit too far back at this stage.
Yeah, and Eric's really pulled the pin. I mean, he's already gained about 0.2, 0.3 from Ricky, so he's really pushed the last lap and given his absolute all in the last lap. So it'd be interesting to see now Odendaal if he's going to try to, you know, pass Ricky anywhere now. Oh, Ricky goes a little bit wide and looks behind him.
Yeah, that's in turn 9 and then turn 10 into the right-hander we go.
Look at Eric.
He's really looking absolutely dominant in this last half of the lap.
This
surely
is gonna be a mid-42, I bet.
Well, through we go into the final corner. Fastest lap surely on the last lap from Eric Granado. Around the final corner we go. You can see the bike moving all over the place. He runs it out very wide in the final corner, but he comes over the timing line to take the checkered flag. Eric Granado, 3 in a row in Estoril, and 2nd place just goes the way of Ricky Cardouz. He was just over 100ths of a second ahead of Stephen Odendaal, who gets another podium on the NTS machine. Lucas Tulovic in 4th place, Hector Garzo in 5th. Unbelievable racing there. Federico Fellini with one of his best races of the season so far in 6th position. Dimas Eki, the Indonesian, was in 7th, and then Hiroki Ono in 8th. Ivo Lopez in 9th, and Mark Luna will complete the top 10. But Eric Granado, well, he went well wide out to the car park before that final, or out of that final corner, but he managed to come across the timing line to take his 1st win in Estoril and his 3rd consecutive win in the 2017 European Moto2 Championship. And props to Ricky Cardouz as well. A valiant effort he put up, but it all came undone for him on the last lap, unfortunately. Not a disappointing result, but a very good podium. He'll be very pleased with that one, I'm sure. But it'll be interesting to see what Eric has to say after that race. And also good for Stephen Odendaal as well, getting some good data for the team, battling in and amongst the top end of the field. And another podium, Lucas Tulovic there in 4th place as well. He managed to hold off the charge of Hector Garzo over the timing line. Those two separated by just 0.2 of a second. There he is, Stephen Odendaal on the NTS machine, back in the original colours compared to what we saw with him riding at Estoril. And he won't be too displeased with that one at all. So what a race we had in Moto2. Don't forget, of course, up next it is the only Moto3 race that we've got here for the Moto3 Junior World Championship, and some 42 riders taking to the grid for that race. It's going to be a very, very exciting feat indeed. So the riders now just completing their cool-down lap just to get themselves, of course, back into Parc Fermé. And then after that, we'll have the interview with the race winner, Eric Granado. We'll have the podium celebrations, and then we'll go straight into Moto3. Everything's running about 15 minutes behind schedule due to the red flag that we had in the European Talent Cup. Bit of a disappointment to have had that race cut so short, but nonetheless, it was very exciting indeed. Here we go, though, with Moto2, and here are the final race results. Eric Granado, Ricky Cardouz, and Stephen Odendaal on the podium. Lucas Tulovic, Hector Garzo, Federico Fellini, Dimas Eki, Hiroki Ono. Great result there for the Japanese rider, and Ivel Paixão in 9th position, so just inside the top 10 for the Portuguese wildcard. His first ever time on that Suter machine for this season. Just And inside the top 10 was Mark Luna. Joe Roberts, of course, we saw him go down in the opening stages, but he did manage to remount and finish in 11th place, taking some all-important points. Carlos Fidaglo in 12th place, the first stock 600 rider home ahead of Felipe Nagello. Unfortunately, Xavier Cardelou's pulling into the pits with some technical issues, and Jason Uribe crashing out on the opening lap at turn number 2. Disappointment there for Jason. He ended up going into pit lane, but there he is, the Brazilian rider, Eric Granado. What a race. He's very happy with that, and the team, they're not too displeased with it either. You wouldn't imagine they would be. What a race it's been for Granado. As we said, his third consecutive win in the European Moto2 Championship. Will he be able to make it 4 in a row? Something we haven't seen for a very, very long time in the Moto2 European Championship, if ever, as a matter of fact. Here we go, though. This was the pass for the win between Granado and Ricky Cardo's hard on the brakes into turn number 7. Found his way up the inside. Cardo's tried to take a tighter line on the exit and fight it back. This was on the penultimate lap, don't forget, but it wasn't to be, and that was the race win for Eric Granado right at that point. He managed to really pull the pin after that and get himself fighting for that race victory after looking perhaps a little bit, not sluggish is the wrong word to use, but perhaps a little bit off form in the opening stage of the race. Bit of a poor start he made, but clawed his way up, and it all paid dividends for him. And surely it's going to be a matter of time before somebody in the World Championship is looking at a ride for Eric Granado. It's a championship that, of course, he is familiar with, competed in it at just 16 years of age for the Moto B team. And then ended up taking a step back after what was, by his own admission, a disappointing year. Ended up taking a step back and going to the Moto3 World Championship. Didn't quite work out for him there, so again came down to the Moto2 European Championship and ended up going into this championship, doing some great stuff on board that Promo Racing Kalex machine. As we mentioned, we got the Moto3 World Championship, Junior World Championship race coming up for you very, very shortly indeed. But let's go down to the pit lane. Dakota is with Eric Granado.
Eric, 3 in a row. You seem to be on fire right now.
Yeah. Today was a very different one. A lot of wind, and was four riders fighting for the victory. And it was a very difficult weekend for me. Just yesterday I got a good pace. So the race I struggled a lot in the straight. I was all the time a little bit far on the braking to overtake. Always like this to overtake, but I have a good rhythm. I knew that if I pass I can open a little gap. But it was a little bit late, I think, 2 laps to go. But finally it was perfect. I got the win, and it's amazing. Winning 3 races in a row. This is good for the championship, for the people here in Estoril. It's like my second house. They speak my language, so very happy. And this is for the team because of the good job we made all the weekend.
Now in your language, please.
Bom, foi final de semana diferente de Valência. Eu tive muita dificuldade em todos os treinos. Só consegui encontrar um bom ritmo ontem. E hoje na corrida foi bem difícil, estava muito vento. Eram 4 pilotos brigando pela vitória. E eu não conseguia chegar perto nas freadas para ultrapassar, porque eu perdi um pouco na reta, chegava um pouco no limite. Mas no final deu certo, foi um pouco tarde, 2 voltas para o final eu consegui passar e ficar em primeiro. Mas o importante na linha de chegada, passar na primeira colocação, a gente conseguiu. 3 corridas seguidas é muito gratificante, ainda mais aqui em Portugal, que como se fosse uma segunda casa, eles falam a minha língua, então estou muito feliz e vamos para a próxima.
Great to hear from Eric Granado, the race winner here in the Moto2 European Championship. Let's have a look at some highlights for the race, shall we? Well, it was Lucas Tolovic taking his first pole position, and he started and led into that first corner. But Ricky Cardo's tried to change that, couldn't quite make it stick though into turn number 1. Everybody made it very cleanly through the first corner, but it was turn number 2 where it all came undone. In fact, no, turn number 3, I apologise for. The AGR team. Meanwhile, Cardo's hit the front of the race. He managed to get himself ahead of Lucas Tolovic as Jason Uribe went down the road. Big shame there for the AGR rider. Meanwhile, everybody kept their nose clean as Tolovic came under pressure from Stephen Odendaal into turn number 1, went Odendaal and up into second position. He was as well. Granado was looking pretty good in the opening stages of the race, dropped back a little bit ever so slightly, but then came really on song in the latter half of the event as we saw. Into the left-hander, that was Joe Roberts who went down the road as well, so 2 AGR bikes unfortunately ending in the gravel track, although he did manage to later remount. This is the move that we ended up nicknaming the Eric because Granado tried to pull it off more than once during that race. Couldn't manage to get the better of Stephen Odendaal, and then Tolovic really came under some pressure from Granado, very close behind indeed. Into the first corner the guys went. Great racing taking place, and then came Tolovic really trying to find his way through into that lead of the race. He dropped back in the latter half, but nonetheless put up a valiant fight towards the end of the middle stint. Into the right-hander of turn number 2. Odendaal found his way through, and then Tolovic would start to slip back through the field as Granado got the better of him into turn number 7. Nicely done up the inside. The move very cleanly through, and then we went into that chicane once more. Tolovic trying to find his way onto the podium, but it was all to no avail. Here comes Granado finding his way up the inside into second place ahead of Odendaal, but Odendaal once again getting that position back on the exit. They ran side by side in the final sector of the lap. Very, very close, very intense indeed. Hard on the brakes into turn number 1. And some beautiful racing taking place between all of the top 3. Came on to the final lap of racing, and still Granado was looking very, very menacing indeed. But this was the move that took him the lead. Penultimate lap before the end, hard on the brakes into turn number 7 he went. He got the move done and dusted ahead of Ricky Cardouse, and that was where he would stay until the checkered flag, with Odendaal completing the podium in Moto3. The team were delighted, and so was Eric Granado. Not a bad race for the Brazilian. 3 in a row here in Estoril. Very, very pleased with that. But what a race we had there. 3 different nationalities on the podium there, Dakota as well. And he likes to talk, doesn't he, Granado? Gives a good interview.
Look at him dance. He loves to chat. But no, he's really happy. I mean, had P2 with 3 wins. He seems to be just, you know, nobody can really beat him right now.
Well, there is the president of the Portuguese Federation presenting the trophy to the Pro Racing team. Then we get the trophy being presented to the 3rd place man, Lucas Tolovic. He always races with old levers, Tolovic. Oh, sorry, I apologise, that's not Tolovic at all. That's the first Stock 600 rider home, of course, which is Mercia.
I was going to say, I didn't know if the top 4 get on the podium.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, apologies about that. The top 3, of course, get on the podium, as well as the Stock 600 riders. So Mercia gets the first place trophy in the Stock 600. Odendaal gets his trophy in 3rd place. 2nd place goes the way of Ricky Cardouse for the Team Starla Bike outfit. And then the race winner.
He doesn't seem too happy. He didn't look too happy down there.
I'm sure he won't be too displeased. It's only 5 points separating those guys in the championship, though.
No, but it's always bad when, you know, you were leading 90% of the race and then your biggest rival beats you. So, anyways, he's got race 2.
And he's got some fuel to get home in as well.
100%.
Eric Granado, the race winner, and now the national anthem.
Salva de palmas para Eric Granado, vencedor pela 3ª corrida consecutiva. Peço agora aos pilotos
Eric
também
Granado, the race winner after the European Moto2 Championship here in Estoril. What a race it was. 3 in a row for him. A brilliant podium for Cardouse and Odendaal, and also Carlos Mercia as well, getting himself up on the rostrum. The first Stock 600 rider home.
E depois da foto, então sim,
and now it's time for the riders to spray the champagne as well. They're old enough to do that as well, unlike we've seen in Moto3 and of course in the European Talent Cup.
I wouldn't want to be spraying the bikes though, because they got race 2 coming up.
Exactly, you've got these things to think about.
São mais de
So
40
everybody
pilotos
congratulating
aqui no
everybody. Be interesting
circuito
to see
do
what they have to
Estoril.
say in the press conference at the end of the day after this as well. Don't forget, of course, there is another Moto2 race to bookend the day. That'll be coming up last of the order at around about, depending if there's any delays, about 3 p.m. there and thereabouts. So looking forward to that. Should be very exciting indeed. But up next it is the Moto3 Junior World Championship. But before that, let's run you through the championship standings for the Moto2 Championship. And as we said, 5 points now separating Granado and Cardoso, 115 to 110. Odendaal trails them on 34 points on 81. Hexagarzo holding on in 4th place there with Dima Zeki in 5th. Joe Roberts was 6th. Federico Fellini 7th in the championship. Lucas Tolovic in 8th place with that good top 5 finish, and then Hiroki Yono inside 9th. Hafiz Siren, of course, he only raced in the first round in Albacete, but took 25 points and that race win. He still sits in 10th in the championship. Oscar Gutierrez, who we haven't seen this weekend, likewise Xavier Cardluz, unfortunately not scoring any points, and further down the order you can see all the riders there that have scored or either haven't as well. So an interesting weekend we've had here so far in the FIM CEV Repsol for the Moto2 European Championship. As we said, don't forget we've got the Moto3 Junior World Championship coming along the way next, and some 42 riders taking to the grid for that one. We're very, very excited to bring you all of that. That'll be coming up, as we said, in just a few moments' time. The pit lane, though, is now open. Moto3 bikes are heading out onto the track, and we'll get ready to bring you all of the coverage for the Moto3 Junior World Championship.